Juice is just a really fast salad. Welcome to the Sky Machine.
Welcome to the Sky Machine, a collective world-building podcast about dynamic, fantastical, and concise storytelling. And we decided to start with a weird, not a quote, but just like...
It's not a quote, because this is just a thought that I had
something to
one day.
ruminate on.
Oh, no, more just...
And
Here we go, we're starting now.
Okay, yeah, so I think that's because this is part 3, this is the sort of advice and discussion section, and an advice tip that I always give people is to start your short stories running.
Yeah.
So like sometimes literally like she ran blah 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 down the hall, but like, you know, cut out the intro, cut out the the
like
climax.
cut out the first paragraph, cut out the last, and there you go. There's a story.
And that's literally what we just did.
And
you know?
that was like
Start
that was like
running.
a good 1 hour's worth of thinking, and you just got the highlights.
Oh, I'm really glad I don't live in your head.
Yes.
So again, welcome to the Sky Machine. This is part 3. This is our really casual like chat.
Evidently not serious.
No, after the tone of like the discussion of the last 2 parts. And hello, I'm Dylan, or Alice. I have 2 names because...
So do I.
Oh, wow.
What?
Having one
What a
name is
coinky
lame.
dink.
having one name is overrated. And I am joined, as always, by Alicia, or Jasper.
I think most people who are coming to listen to this probably know me as Jasper, because that's what I go by online. But
Very cool.
I'm happy with both.
People always ask me like, hey, which name do you prefer? And I'm like, I'm just happy to be spoken to. I don't mind by which name.
Either is fine.
Yeah.
I have them both because I like them both.
Exactly.
If I preferred one over the other,
I would change it.
Yeah.
But we are both people who are very interested in world building and storytelling. We're both dungeon masters for Dungeons and Dragons.
And writers.
And writers. We're doing the same creative writing course at university. We're young and crash hot, and we love long walks on the beach. Tell me a little about what you've been like. What storytelling you've been looking at? What like games?
What kind of stuff I do? Just by me?
Just in general.
In relation to storytelling stuff? Okay. Okay, well, I'll be honest. Creative writing is something I'm interested in. It's not something I've always done. I love developing worlds, and all throughout high school I just spent ages developing stories and building these really complex worlds and multiverses, and I absolutely love it. I never really wrote them as stories. I always intended to. I just didn't.
I'm exactly the same.
I love storytelling.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe writing is the way that I necessarily express that.
I think that's why we both made this podcast, because it is a way for us to exercise our love of storytelling. There's a YouTuber that I love called Worldbuilding Notes is the name of their YouTube channel. It's Eva, I believe, who talks about world building for the love of world building and how they wish that there were more people out there who did world building for the love of world building. And
here we go.
Exactly. And the storytelling part is just like one part of it. I was exactly the same growing up in high school. Like I would never write down the stories; they would just exist.
I think I showed you the other day. I found a huge box in my garage full of maybe like 20 or so notebooks, just full of this multiverse.
All of your worlds are in the same.
Yeah, every story I tell is a part of the same world.
Except these.
Well, I know how they fit in. In my head canon, they fit into my world. But
okay, well, unless it comes up in the podcast.
It's not canon.
It's not canon.
That's okay. That's fair. Well, it's in the podcast now.
Oh no! You got me on the technicality. Okay, cool. What sort of stories have you been like looking at?
I mean, I love fantasy stuff and sci-fi. I don't know. A lot of the stories I kind of think of don't necessarily fit into either. Well, the traditional view of fantasy is elves and Dungeons and Dragons.
People often get caught up in the differentiation between fantasy and high fantasy. Like they think of fantasy and they think of high fantasy, but fantasy and sci-fi, the lines between them are very vague. Like Dungeons and Dragons is a science fiction, science fantasy world by its nature, and like often when people say fantasy, they mean high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, elves, and things like that. But fantasy is like Harry Potter with, real world things. But it's also like any, like I think Jean M. Auel's Clan of the Cave Bear, which is like historical fiction, falls under fantasy because it's like semi-realistic historical fiction, which makes it like not. It's a bit sci-fi as well because it's a bit speculative fiction. But
I mean, yeah, I think when we say fantasy, we mean it's fantastical.
Yes, exactly. That was originally, I think, the name of that tenet of the Wonder tenet was fantasy.
But we just like the word wonder.
Yeah, we both watched the How to Train Your Dragon 2 director's commentary, or in that documentary they talk about the air that they wanted to capture for How to Train Your Dragon was wonder, and I thought that was just such a beautiful thing, and I was like, oh, that is exactly what I love about that series, is that it's filled with wonder.
It's wonderful. Jinx.
I love that podcast. I've got a pin of it. Anyway, wonderful. Griffin and Rachel's. Anyway.
Nice.
I don't know how much else we have to talk about.
I mean, I just talked about myself, so why don't you talk about yourself?
Oh, I guess so. I love fantasy. I'm a big lover of fantasy. I have Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind series in front of me on my desk. I kind of like the storytelling of games. Like, I don't play as many games as I, think about playing. Like, we're both just started playing Transistor, which has the exact aesthetic that I love so much, and we were talking about how we might do a world inspired by that sort of technology idea, sort of Art Nouveau technology. It's very cool.
I'd just like to say quickly as well, we clearly both are fantasy buffs,
yeah,
but that does not mean whatsoever that we're not going to explore other themes.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say just now, I love sci-fi so much. That it's like often when I'm like, oh, I need to write a short story, I will just go to sci-fi, because you can just do so much with it.
Yeah.
You can just be like the classic George R.R. Martin thing of calling something plasteel, and it's just immediately sci-fi. It's like, what is plasteel? A plastic seal? I don't know, but it's like fantasy babble, sci-fi babble, that sort of stuff. You can just throw them around, and it's so much fun to do.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of with. Fantasy I find a little more, not challenging, but like challenging in a nice way. Whereas sci-fi, I'm just like, oh, I can have fun.
Yeah.
It's got lasers and ray guns and aliens and big monsters and like the spaghetti western style stuff in space, but then also like space opera things.
Yeah, see, no, but like, I don't want to spoil any of the ideas and stuff they're working on, but the episode after this is literally dealing with a theme that I don't really like that much. It's not one that I usually delve into, but I really love the world that we've created.
Yeah, it's. I think for both of us, it's a new like genre. I used to hate this genre, and I've only recently found out like creators that I'm like, oh, I actually love you, and I love your stuff so much. Or like I have found that I've always loved their stuff and worked out why. But yeah, so the short story that we're doing next will be an interesting challenge, because it is a genre that is very new to the both of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've broken it down into 3 parts, and we sort of arranged them in listenability. There may be people out there who will just want to listen to part 1 being the short stories that are set in the fictional worlds that we make in part 2, which is the world building session, where we just either create or expand on a world. And then part 3 is like tips and tricks, just chillin', musings on writing, and also we'll go over some technical stuff, like later we'll talk about our Discord, and I don't know how it's the part 3 is a mixed bag of everything else. Off the top of the game, I wanted to hold on, I'm just opening my phone, really lifting the kayfabe here. Ground rules or tenets, kind of. We have like 5 tenets that we try to uphold in our storytelling. And
so we really want to be reflected in this podcast.
In the community that we hope to build of writers and things like that. But they are as follows: wonder, complexity, consistency, clarity, and community. Are the 5. It was originally going to be 5 C's, because we're a company. And that's how
because we're broke pirates.
Exactly. But we couldn't find a word. One of them we couldn't fit into a C, so we were just like, well, let's lose it. And then we tried to spell the word whack,
and that didn't work.
WACCC.
So now it's whack, but with an apostrophe between the W and the C.
Like
so
a true fantasy world. It's a schwa in there, it works. So wonder is the sense of the fantastical and the dreamlike that we want to capture in all of our worlds. We don't ever want to tell.
We don't want it to be mundane or boring, the everyday. Even if it can be set in a modern day world like ours, but there needs to be something that captures your imagination and makes it awesome in the very literal definition of the word.
Archaic term, we were considering having this one under the frame familiar, but not too familiar.
Yeah.
The next one is complexity. So we want it to be interesting, unique, and dynamic. Like, first idea is good, fifth idea is better. You know, like, take it that next few steps.
Never boring or 2D. Characters need to be unique and realistic. And
that goes for, you know, heroes and villains and side characters and stuff like that. Consistency. So this is to do with theming, having each world or each story based around a consistent theme for the world building and the characterization to keep worlds having like a consistent feeling.
Yeah, so whether that's like we're specifically aiming for like a sci-fi or a noir world, or it could be the actual tone we're trying to convey in it.
You know, we're having like this like Studio Ghibli style beautiful romantic like artful world, and then it's like horror out of nowhere, and I'm like, and that is a cool tone if that's the theme, is both of those mixed. I just had a really cool idea, but if it's just one and then the other comes in, unless there's a point to that, unless that is the theme, you've got to remember tonality.
And that's important in making sure you're properly immersed in the world.
Exactly.
Like jumping around from theme to theme can be okay if you plan it and execute it properly, but otherwise
if there is a point to it,
otherwise it can just kind of break you out of that story. Our
next thing is clarity. Keeping things clear and concise.
Yes.
And then the one after that is community. Community is both to do with if we create some sort of community around people, we want it to be inclusive, but also we want the stories to not like, I think we have written down, don't write out of spite and cruelty, be a fan of the writing.
Yes.
So you're never writing a hate piece, essentially.
I think this both lends itself to people in the stories that we're writing about, and being respectful of them, but also the people that are around this podcast.
Absolutely.
And we want to create it in a way so that you, the listener, can interact with the stories that we're making, and you can have influence over the stories that we're telling. And you can be the writers in it as well. Yeah. And so this little community that we want to build, we want to make sure that that's done respectfully, and that everyone everyone
has their say. Everyone is a part of it.
Yeah, it's as inclusive as we can make it.
So those are the main sort of, like, we wanted to get the tenets out. We wanted to talk about the 3 parts, and we sort of breezed over all of that very quickly. Did you want to talk about the Discord?
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't know what that is.
That's okay. So when we're discussing worlds and stuff, we're probably going to end up talking about resources quite a bit. Like, I draw on lots of bits of information, inspiration, for the stories I come up with, like pictures and stuff like that. And I think it's important for you to be able to see where I'm drawing inspiration from, and so on. So I've put together a Discord, which is not only going to function as a chat for listeners and for us to participate in as well, but it's also going to work as a place where I can upload resources that we use that you can have a look at. Yeah. So this is going to kind of require you to know a bit about how Discord works, but if you don't, that's okay as well, because I'm going to put together a bit of a guide as to how this whole system will work. So even if you've never used it, you'll be able to understand.
Explain it so I can understand.
So this Discord's going to be called the Sky Machine, of course. Makes sense. Basically, the way that it's going to work is that there will be 2 different channels for every world that we create. There will be a general chat where everyone can talk. You can discuss ideas about the world, about certain ideas you might have for it, everything like that. Yep. So you can discuss it with other people, you can discuss it with us and propose ideas for it and stuff like that.
Yeah, there'll sort of be a system of like semi-canon, like if everyone sort of agrees on cool ideas, then we'll review them, and if we think they work, then they'll probably become part of it. And it's only really like canonical if it comes up in the world building episode. If it's not mentioned in there, and it's not mentioned in one of the stories, it doesn't quite exist yet, but it's in the running to do so. Yeah. So if you guys come up with something that's real rad,
then it'll probably show up. And we'll definitely revisit worlds. Like, I think we've already probably decided we're probably going to revisit Big Trees again.
We love Big Trees so much.
Yes, very much.
I've already got half of a story written for Big Trees. Yeah. About some travelers. So,
Yes. Yeah, so every world is going to have 2 chats. There's that first general one, but then there's going to be a secondary chat for each world. This one is identified by a light bulb symbol next to the name of it. This one, only you and I can post things on it, and that's where I'm going to put resources that we have referenced
so you don't
in
have to-
that particular for that particular world.
So you don't have to like scroll through the conversation to find
Yes, that's true.
one video or whatever.
Before I post a list of resources that are associated with a particular episode, I will post the name of the episode and the date on which it was released and pin that message to that particular chat. So when you're then listening to an episode, you can look through the pinned messages for that particular world, click on the episode and the date it was released, so you get taken directly to those resources. I know this is a little bit complicated. There is a guide on the Discord as to how it all works. That's just under general channels, and it's the server guide, and I'm going to put in exactly how that all works. So if you need any clarification, it's there. And if you ever need any clarification as to how it works and how to find anything, just ask me in the general chat.
Yeah. So, I mean, surely someone will help.
Yeah, totally.
Because I mean, that's a big part of the aspect of community we want to bring. It's just like, help people. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you have resources that you use and you want to share, feel free to put them in the chat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's always helpful.
Yeah, totally. And if I think they're good, I can pin things to the chat as well.
Yeah.
So you can go back and find those resources again. I asked though, if you do post stuff, please make sure there's like a good link back to the original source. I think because we're going to be using lots of stuff from artists, and these people work really hard, and they deserve the credit for doing all this hard work.
And surely this is
we don't
the
want
best thing. Like they may have other things out there that you want to see.
Yeah, totally.
Like that.
Tips
and tricks.
Things we like.
I had a tip. Yeah. So every week we want to try and have a couple tips and tricks, things that we've learned. The thing that I always tell people is, or the thing that I try to practice, is to be succinct, and that's why it's one of the tenets I vied really hard for it to be in there, is taking as little time as possible to say as much as possible. And I think that's just like real important. I don't do it when I talk because I am not conscious of my thoughts while I'm talking. It just comes out. But I feel like probably the more I practice it, the more it happens innately. But yeah, that is my tip, is to be succinct, and I feel like people say this all the time. Maybe hopefully I've said it in a way that someone understands. That's another thing. Try to read as much as possible, listen as much as possible, because you'll hear the same advice over and over again. Eventually someone will say it in the language you understand, and it'll click. Like when people are like, you need to do more exercise, and they say it over and over again, and I'm like, all right. And then one person says it in the exact way. They're like, hey, oxygen and getting your blood moving helps, and I'm like, oh, that's a good point. I should do more exercise.
Yeah. Totally.
Mm.
I think our audience is going to end up being a bit of a mixture of writers and people who play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I assume over time this will accidentally evolve into a D&D thing, because we both have a love of it, and it's most of what we talk about.
Yes, it is like 60% of my personality, and the rest of it's Doctor Who.
I think people just got a very distinct visual image of what you look like.
Yeah,
they're not incorrect.
Yeah, no. What you're picturing right now, that's it. If you like to draw what you think I look like and put it in the Discord, please.
It'll be real easy.
It'll be spot on.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
And so this is just a thing that I do in the D&D games that I run that I think is fun, and because I like to make D&D games a bit of an event.
You really do.
I do. Because I mean, there are some games I go to that we just get there and sit around a table, and it feels lackluster, and I want to kind of build up. I know
you're not doing this intentionally, but I'm getting vague. I'm getting real vague blogged right now.
No, I'm not talking about you. It's okay.
I know. Just goofing. No, you inspire me. I want to like start doing better stuff, and like people turn up and everything's prepared and everything. But most of the time when I'm playing with my regular party, it's like over Skype or over Facebook video chat, so it's like they can't see anything anyway.
Yeah, I get that. D&D games all take different forms and stuff like that. You gotta do what you can, and I just have the resources and the ability to go that a little bit further, and so I do. So the tip I have today is not original.
Did you get it from somewhere?
Yeah, I did.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint you. There's a podcast, I haven't listened to it for a while and I need to get back into it. It's called DM's Block. It is a podcast.
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a podcast for DMs by DMs, and it is absolutely fantastic. If you play D&D, if you if you run D&D games, definitely listen to it. I mean, if you're a player, you can. It'll definitely give you good insight into
I think that there's a like a cyclic sort of learning system to being a DM and being a player. It's like the more you know about as a player, the more you know about DMing, the more you learn about being a player, and vice versa. As a DM, the more you know about being a player, and like.
That is very true, but also I've also used a lot of ideas from there, so, you know.
Oh, okay. I won't listen to it because of your games.
Yes.
But I'll just learn the DMing knowledge from you.
Yes, but with this idea is from, I think, their first episode, or at least the first few of them, which is doing a snack theme or snack challenge. So, every session, I set a theme, or I give them my players a word, which is usually related to something they're currently doing in the game or something that is going to happen that session. So a bit of foreshadowing, and they need to come up with a snack that is based around that theme. I think it just kind of gets people a little bit more excited, changes it from the monotony of bringing Pringles and Oreos every time.
Yeah, it's very immersive. The last session we had, the snack theme was fire, which was appropriate. We're dealing with this like spooky flame ghost situation, so we sort of knew that that's going to come back into the fold. So I brought like a chai tea mixture with
I mean, you made it yourself. It was really good.
Yeah, it was really fun. I would have made one bespoke, but I just grabbed the one out of my cupboard. And then you made little cupcakes.
I made little cupcakes that I
like
tried,
a flame,
a flame kind of thing.
And I ate way too many
icing.
of them. Yeah. And then one of the other players brought a whole container of chilies.
Yep.
And he threw it down on the table and he said, if you roll a 1, you got to eat one. And of course I rolled the first one.
You handled it well though.
Yeah.
I mean, they were bullseye, 4 out of 5 spiciness.
I'm not great with spice, but I felt good because I took it the best out of the three of us, because you didn't have to eat one.
No.
I don't trust you, but...
You shouldn't, but I didn't roll a 1.
Okay. The other two were teary-eyed. Trey just couldn't sit down.
No.
He just had to get up and walk around.
Yeah, no, a lot of milk was had.
Yeah.
Those cupcakes disappeared a lot faster.
Yeah, the cupcakes really helped. I think it was just the icing, and just the fact that for a while you were tasting something.
There's a lot of butter in them. So.
Yeah, okay, that's good. But yeah, and you know, when we were fighting I still had the chili flame in my mouth when we were fighting the flame ghost again, so I felt it. Yeah,
it really helped with the immersion.
Exactly. When my boy Pip delved into that flame, I felt it. Like, it was not fun.
You two were on fire.
Yeah. No. But yeah, that is a wonderful tip and trick, and I'm sure it can be converted into any number of things just to do with like having stories be immersive, and like if you're dealing in different subject matter, like I don't know, I guess my first thought was 4D movies, but that's not a cool...
No.
Man, people have to make those. Now I'm thinking about that. There's like people out there who are like, that's their job, and I don't know how they take themselves seriously. I'm sure one day they'll be cool, but at the moment I just think of Shrek.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what I thought of too.
Thing.
I think I've been in that one.
I have not. I just heard legend. Although the McElroy brothers did go and see Hobbs and Shaw in 4D.
Yeah, I heard that.
In the
like sneezes.
Yeah, I don't know if that was real or if they were joking. I don't know if anything's real from. Yeah. Anyway.
I just take it all as fact.
4D movies.
Oh yes, but no, I'll put a link in the Discord to DM's Block. It is very, very good. One of the best D&D resources I found.
I mean, that's most of what we have to cover. I mean, we can just cut it short and sweet. We have been Dylan and Alice, and my associate.
Jasper or Alicia, whichever you prefer.
And this is The Sky Machine.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Goodbye.
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 We should probably have like an end thing that we'll say, we'll figure it out at time.
We'll figure it out. Okay.
Well done, us.